guys, my name's Austin Baker. I'm the Communications Director here at Network Funding. We are a residential mortgage lender. We're a national lender that's based here in Houston, and we've had a lot of our own employees be affected by the flood. We had almost 11% of our Houston-based employees lose their homes, their cars, their possessions to Hurricane Harvey. We've got a team in Florida that's been affected by Hurricane Irma, and so we definitely empathize with everybody in the greater Houston and Florida areas that's been impacted by these storms. There's been a lot of questions out there. So we've been hearing them, and a lot of them aren't even related to the loan side of things. It has to do with insurance or contractor questions, title questions, all these things. And so what we figured we would do is shoot a few videos where we address some of these questions with the industry experts and get these videos out to you to help you out. So make sure you follow our page and like the videos, share them. We're going to be posting them over the next few days and weeks. So we want to try to get you some helpful information as you try to navigate through the recovery of these hurricanes. So maybe you've been affected, maybe you know someone who's been affected. Hopefully these videos will help. Today we've got Amanda.trevino from Goosehead Insurance. They're a great insurance company, and she's here to talk to us about some of just the basic questions that people are having related to flood damage, wind damage, anything that the hurricane caused directly or indirectly. So Amanda, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Amanda, one of the things we've been talking about is loss of use. Can you explain what loss of use is?
Yeah, so loss of use is also known sometimes as additional living expenses. A lot of times you can tap into it using your homeowner's insurance, but it's not actually included on a flood policy. So there are times that you might make a claim with your home insurance and your flood insurance at the same time and be able to tap into loss of use. But if the peril that caused the damage was only going to be flood, that will not be included on a flood insurance policy.
Okay, so that's big, because if I've been displaced for the flood, my flood insurance doesn't cover that. Potentially my homeowner's insurance, if I do have loss of use, it might cover me, or I'm not getting covered there
so if what caused the damage to your home was big enough that you wanted to make a claim on your home insurance, so if you simultaneously had two open claims, one on your home and one on your flood, there's a chance that you can use loss of use. Okay. But if it was just flood, then there's not loss of use on a flood insurance policy.
And what things fall under the category of loss of use? Is it like temporary housing,
right,
transportation?
Those things can be used. Yeah, it could be meals, it could be hotel rooms. Obviously there are limits on those, so you'd have to look at your individual policy. But again, that's something you would talk about with your insurance agent personally.
So if I have loss of use, I might not necessarily be able to go stay at the Four Seasons.
Right.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Fair enough. And then let's say that I don't have loss of use or I can't access loss of use. What are my options out there as far as being able to help with some of these situations, such as lodging?
Yeah, so in my personal experience, I've had clients that are just staying with family and friends right now until they can go back to their homes. But I do have clients that did have flood insurance that were still able to get disaster assistance through FEMA. So it's still worth calling and asking for additional resources if those things are not going to be covered in your flood policy.
Okay, so if I don't have loss of use, I might still be able to get disaster relief from FEMA to address some of those issues.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
definitely
good
try.
to know. Good to know. Okay. Okay, so one of the big problems that we have, especially in Houston, is we have all these people that flooded that didn't have flood insurance. Something like 70% of the people that were affected didn't have flood insurance. Huge problem. So if that's me, what are my options? I mean, are there any that I can't get retroactive insurance, right? So what is there?
Yeah, you would have definitely had to have a flood policy set up prior to the storm. Even someone looking to call prior to the storm would have had to wait 30 days for the policy to go into effect. So if you did get flooded without flood insurance, there are still resources out there. Definitely go to disaster assistance. Go to the FEMA website and get in line to apply there. But there are, certain short-term loans or grants that you might be able to qualify for. So it won't be covered on your home insurance. It's an excluded, peril on your home insurance policy, but you can go there and look for other resources.
Okay, so opposite end of the spectrum, I'm flooded, but I had flood insurance. Let's talk about that real quick. How do I know if it's enough damage? Obviously, some people catastrophic damage, but some people just got a little bit of water coming into maybe just 1 or 2 rooms, and it really wasn't that bad. Are there any negatives to making a claim? Like, is it like getting in a car wreck and then, you make a claim on your car insurance and your car insurance goes up? If I make a claim on my flood insurance, are my flood insurance rates going to go up? Is my homeowner's insurance rate going to go up? I mean, is there a negative to...
Yeah, I mean, and there can be. Again, that's going to be a carrier per carrier situation. We see different things happen with different cases, so it's not really a straight answer. But if you do have damages, you definitely want to, assess the situation, get an adjuster out there if that's what you decide to pursue.
Right. Okay, so pushing the pendulum all the way to the other end, I had flood insurance. I got flooded. It was more than what I had coverage for, because we have a lot of people that just got a little bit of flood insurance. They're not in a mandatory flood zone. So they're thinking, okay, I'll get $100,000 coverage on my building. House, the damage that was done was $200,000. What happens to those people? What are their options? Yeah,
so you are only going to get up to what your damage is qualified for. So if the loss was greater, you only have what your policy limits cover. So unfortunately, there are additional resources such as those grants and loans that we were talking about earlier, but you are only going to get, again, what the adjuster has deemed a loss, so to your policy limit there.
Okay, so if I've got $100,000, $200,000 worth of damage was done, I can get potentially the 100 from the adjuster on my insurance claim, and then I just need to look at the other third-party options, disaster relief, other types of loans to try to help cover the difference. Maybe call the lender and ask the lender if they've got anything that they can do.
Yeah, definitely.
Aside, we do. So if you are in that situation, give us a call. We'd love to help you. Okay, great. And then the last topic I want to hit on that note is also for the people that had more coverage than what they need. Okay. So let's say they had $200,000 worth of coverage, only $100,000 worth of damage. They're absolutely making a claim. Do they try to milk this thing and get as much out of it as they can, or are they stuck with the $100,000?
Right, and so you really are going to get what the adjuster deems a loss. So if you had more and it was less, you're only going to get what what was decided, right? You don't want to create insurance fraud or anything.
So getting flooded is not hitting the jackpot after all. Okay, so talking about the adjusters, what does someone need to have ready when the adjuster is coming up?
Yeah, so we're talking, I guess, as someone who has flood insurance. They're making a claim. When you make a claim, FEMA will send you essentially a spreadsheet of the items that you will need to claim, value, list them out. So once I get a call, I tell my clients to start their spreadsheet, even if they haven't heard back from the adjuster, so they can itemize everything, take videos, take pictures. We even told clients to share, to save 12 by 12s of either the carpet or the drywall, not to really dispose of things. We want to prove that things were damaged. And so it really helps when the adjuster can come back and actually see the damage that's been done, as they can assess it and get you what you need.
Sure. Is that like a spreadsheet that someone just needs to create on their own, or is there like a specific one on the FEMA website?
The one I've seen, when they will email it to the client, for the clients that we've had that I've seen have an actual spreadsheet that comes from them after the claim has been made. They've been assigned a number. But it doesn't hurt to create your own one and then have to transfer it. But we just tell clients, when you have a claim and you haven't heard from the adjuster yet, you're still waiting on that, you do want to do the best that you can to mitigate the situation, because additional losses, if it continues and turns into black mold, and there are things that may or may not be covered, so you want to do the best that you can to keep preventing further loss.
So we need to have enough that we can show the adjuster, here's what happened, but we need to try to begin the process of at least cleaning out the wound, and so that it can start healing up.
And I tell my clients, if they call me directly, I really put them back to the adjuster, because I want them to have the correct information and everyone to be on the same page. So the claims side really is going to be determined by either the appraiser or the adjuster. And so if it's a particular question even as coverage of saving receipts, doing the demo, am I going to be reimbursed for this? You want to make sure you get that from those individuals as well. But I save all your receipts.
So save the receipts, build out your spreadsheet, take pictures, and keep a sample on hand if it's not blatantly obvious.
Right.
So, okay, that's great. I think that's pretty common sense, but sometimes when you're in the middle of this stuff, thinking clearly, I know, can be one of the hardest things. So that's really helpful. And then you mentioned earlier about actual value versus depreciation value on your assets. So talking about the stuff, like you have a $1,000 TV that got damaged, but maybe that TV is 2 or 3 years old, you're not gonna get the replacement cost of the TV. You're gonna get the actual cost. Is that correct?
Typically, on the FEMA program, all contents will be actual cash value, which just means it includes depreciation on each item.
Okay.
Right.
So what it's valued at currently, not what you paid for it.
Right.
That kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess you could try to argue that your TV got better with age, but that might not go too far with the adjuster. Okay, so another question that I've been getting has also been about vehicles, right? Like, is my vehicle flooded? It was parked in the street, or my vehicle flooded? It was in the garage. Who covers the vehicles if they're flooded? Is that flood insurance? Is that homeowner's insurance? Is that car insurance? What bucket does that fall in?
So I've had clients call me because their cars were parked in their garage. So they wondered, okay, is this going to be flood insurance? Am I covered for it? Is it home insurance? With an automobile, it's going to be your auto policy. So there's a coverage called comprehensive and collision. So comprehensive is going to be flood waters, a tree falling on your car, you hitting an animal. Collision is what it sounds like, you crashing into another vehicle. So if your car did flood, you will want to reach out to your auto carrier and start the claim process there. You will obviously have to pay for your deductible, and then it'll get assessed with the adjuster.
Okay. So I feel like that's kind of a news flash. That has, in my neighborhood, that has been like a topic of debate at neighbor gatherings. We've been duking it out over which coverage that picks up, but you bring up the really good point that it's not just collision damage that we gotta be paying attention to. It's that comprehensive coverage and making sure that you've got that, because if you're thinking, I don't live in a floodplain, I don't need flood insurance, and you're thinking, all I'm worried about is other drivers and getting in a wreck, you really could be up a creek.
Well, what I see when I'm even just quoting people and bringing people on is they've decided that their car is not worth much anymore. So maybe it's an older vehicle and they decide only to carry liability limits. So then they're not choosing to have comprehensive or collision. So those people who didn't have that coverage, there's not really anywhere to make a claim.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that can be a really big pickle to be in. Let's talk about renter's insurance, because that's something that's been popping up as well. If I didn't own the house, if I was renting the home, or if I was living in an apartment and let's say I had renter's insurance, am I covered, or how does the flood situation work for tenants?
So with tenants, you do want to insure your contents for coverage for flood. You can, participate in the program and decide to go out and get a flood policy. Because you don't own the structure, you'd want to only, insure your contents and your items. Another kind of interesting situation that's come up is when I am selling flood insurance, a lot of my renters will say, I'm on the 2nd or 3rd floor, and I don't know if you've seen the news and seen some balconies have gotten that wind-driven rain, and even 2nd floor, rental apartments have been flooded. So it is something to think about.
So if it's coming in from the balcony,
there's a possibility.
That counts as flood damage?
It definitely could.
I didn't even know that.
Well,
okay.
It definitely could. So it's one of those things to kind of decide better safe than sorry.
Yeah.
But if
so that's not even rising water getting up to your balcony. That's just the rain hitting it, pooling, and possibly coming in.
FEMA would, their definition is, naturally rising water, greater than 2 acres or so. So it is one of those things that better safe than sorry, but I have had clients that just assume because they're renters, their landlord policy is going to take care of everything, and unfortunately it doesn't extend to the renter. Okay. Now, if the landlord had items in there that were theirs, like appliances, and they did have flood insurance, those things could be claimed, but not the individual that's renting the structure. They would have had to have had their own policy.
Okay, and so you've got regular renter's insurance. Good idea to have a flood insurance policy on top of that. And I'd imagine that that's got to be really cheap.
Oh yeah, it's pretty affordable. It's a couple $100 depending on if you wanted to insure $20,000 or up.
Yeah.
It's very affordable.
Yeah, and that's for the whole year.
Right.
Yeah, a couple $100 for the whole
Right.
year. Just it just seems like, I mean, having gone through what we've gone through, that might be some of the best insurance you could have. Like chances are in Houston with a 100-year, 200-year, and 800-year flood in the last 24 months, might be a good idea to get yourself some flood insurance.
Right.
Moral of the story. All right, so Amanda, just a couple last questions before I let you go. If I didn't flood and I don't have flood insurance, if I made it through an 800-year flood, I mean, chances are, I'm a pretty risk-averse person. I think I would probably go ahead and bite the bullet and get some flood insurance at this point. But let's say that I'm hard-headed and I'm pretty bullish on my property, thinking it's not going to flood. What are your recommendations? I mean, do you think, am I good to not buy it, or should,
Right.
I guess what I'm getting at is you're talking about on the apartments, the water coming in. Other than an 800-year flood, water rising, like you said, is FEMA's definition of flood. And so maybe it's not even a storm. Maybe it's someone's garbage bag got sucked into a gutter, a storm gutter. Now my street's flooding, water comes into my house. That's flood damage, right?
Well, it has to be naturally rising water, typically greater than 2 acres. So what I would tell my clients, period, is I've been making calls after the storm just to see if people are still interested. And you have both sides of people who say, I didn't flood through this, I'm not gonna see it again, and I'm not worried.
We're good.
But I do have lots of clients calling in just better safe than sorry, and I think a couple $100 is worth their sanity during the time, and peace of mind for sure. And so basically what I would say, I'm an insurance agent, I'm going to tell you to buy the policy because that's my job, to protect the client. So we see things just like you mentioned. It could not just be a storm, but it could be a really bad rainstorm that water is collecting due to new developments, dirt sitting around. So it is something to consider, even if you're not in a mandatory flood zone. Again, everyone's in a flood zone. It's whether or not you're preferred or mandatory. It's something to consider because it is very affordable. You're buying a $300,000 house. What's $300 to spend? It really is something that you want to take care of your asset. But at the end of the day, I think you should definitely consider it. Whether or not, you decide your neighbors have it or not. I had a client in Katy who she really was one of the only people in her neighborhood to have flood insurance, and she did have a policy with us, so she was grateful.
Yeah, there you go. So that's scary just hearing how you guys in the industry even talk about it, that everybody is in a flood zone. It's just whether or not you're in a mandatory. I heard one of the news anchors in Houston said that this flood was more than an 800-year flood. It was like a 20,000-year flood. Basically, the last time it was this bad was when Noah was around. And so I guess if you're looking back to Noah, technically everywhere is truly in a flood zone. All right, Amanda, last question. So if I'm keeping my house and my house was affected by the flood, is there anything that I need to be watching out for as far as the structural integrity of the home moving forward? I mean, I've done everything with the contractor to get the house back to its previous condition. From an insurance standpoint, is there anything that you would say, keep an eye out for this?
Well, every carrier that is going to consider a risk is going to look into the amount of claims that you've had in the past 3 to 5 years. So those things may pop up, and they will just ask you to explain that with either a letter of experience to explain that, what happened and that it has been repaired and taken care of. So you want to make sure that, you do cover your bases there when you're getting insured by a new carrier. Carriers will send out for inspection when they decide to take on a risk. So if it's something that they've approved and they're on their side, again, it's a carrier-to-carrier condition. But you will want to, make sure that you are upfront about those things. and that's up for the carrier to decide whether or not they're going to continue insuring you. But moving forward, that would be home insurance if you're talking about like a fire or wind and hail damage. It's not necessarily related to flood anymore.
Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate you coming out. Super helpful. I actually learned some stuff, even though we've talked about these questions for the last couple of days.
Yeah.
Still got some new information, and I really appreciate that. Hopefully everybody that was watching learned as well. Guys, remember that if you have any questions, you can reach out to Amanda and her team at the Houston office directly. We'll have their information as well as the Miami office's information for anyone in Florida. If you have any questions, you can reach out to them, or you can post the questions under the Facebook or YouTube video, and we'll get back to you directly. Again, my name's Austin Baker, here with Network Funding. We'll be posting some more videos, talking to different industry experts. We'll have a realtor, an appraiser, a contractor as well next week. So keep following the videos and share it with your friends. We appreciate it.